Welcome, fellow explorers of the cosmos and occasionally the darker possibilities of our own planet. Today we embark on a speculative journey, one that takes us into the potential scenarios of a hypothetical World War III. While we hope such a conflict never occurs, it's important, like any scientific thought experiment, to understand the possible outcomes. Imagine a world consumed by conflict where the delicate threads of global peace have been severed. What would be the consequences of such a war, fought not on battlefields of the past, but in the interconnected, technologically advanced world we've created? Our journey is a sobering one, a stark reminder of the stakes at play in our modern world and the importance of seeking peaceful solutions. Let's dive in, shall we? One of the most pressing concerns, and perhaps the most terrifying, is the potential for nuclear conflict. The destructive power of these weapons is difficult to comprehend. A single detonation can instantly vaporize a city, leaving behind a radioactive wasteland. The concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, has kept nuclear powers in check for decades. The idea is grim but simple. If one nation launches a nuclear attack, the other will retaliate in kind, leading to the annihilation of both. But MAD relies on rational actors. What happens if a leader becomes desperate, if miscalculation or miscommunication occurs? The potential for escalation is a terrifying reality, and the devastation wouldn't stop at immediate casualties. Nuclear winter, a period of prolonged darkness and cold caused by soot and debris blocking out the sun, could cripple agriculture and lead to global famine. Beyond the immediate impact, we have to consider the long-term consequences. Radiation from nuclear explosions can contaminate water supplies, food chains, and entire ecosystems for generations. The very air we breathe would become a threat, carrying radioactive particles across borders and continents, affecting populations far removed from the initial conflict. The use of nuclear weapons wouldn't be a war against a nation, it would be a war against humanity itself.
In the 21st century, warfare isn't confined to physical battlefields. Cyber warfare, the use of digital attacks to disrupt and disable an enemy's infrastructure and capabilities, represents a new and insidious form of conflict. Imagine a scenario where a nation's power grid goes dark with the flick of a switch, plunged into chaos, or a coordinated attack on financial systems, wiping out savings and grinding economies to a halt. Cyber attacks can cripple communication networks, disrupting emergency services, military coordination, and even the flow of information to the public. In a world increasingly reliant on interconnected systems, cyber warfare can be just as devastating as traditional military action, if not more so. It's a silent, invisible war fought in the digital realm, with the potential to bring entire nations to their knees. The perpetrators of cyber attacks can be difficult to identify, operating from anywhere in the world, hiding behind layers of digital anonymity. This makes retaliation difficult and raises serious questions about escalation and the attribution of blame. What if a cyber attack is misidentified, leading to an escalation of traditional hostilities? The line between digital warfare and conventional conflict is becoming increasingly blurred, creating a dangerous and unpredictable landscape. And unlike traditional warfare, which often targets military objectives, cyber warfare can directly impact civilians. Imagine hospitals losing power during surgeries, transportation systems grinding to a halt, or critical infrastructure failing on a massive scale. The potential for widespread chaos, panic, and suffering is immense. Cyber warfare represents a new and terrifying chapter in the evolution of conflict.
History has shown us time and again that global conflicts rarely remain confined to a single region or a small number of combatants. The world is a web of alliances, both political and military, and a conflict involving major powers could quickly draw in nations across the globe. Imagine a scenario where a regional conflict erupts, perhaps fueled by long-standing tensions over territory or resources. As the fighting escalates, each side calls upon its allies for support, drawing more and more countries into the fray. Military alliances like NATO could be activated, obligating member states to come to the defense of their allies, even if it means engaging in a conflict far from their own borders. But alliances aren't static. They can shift and evolve based on political calculations, economic interests, and even personal relationships between leaders. What starts as a localized conflict could quickly spiral into a global conflagration, engulfing entire continents in war. The world has become increasingly interconnected, not just through trade and technology, but also through shared challenges like climate change and pandemics. In this interconnected world, a conflict in one region can have ripple effects felt across the globe. A war involving major powers would disrupt global trade, leading to economic instability and potentially triggering a worldwide recession or even a depression. The flow of refugees fleeing conflict zones would strain resources and exacerbate existing tensions. And the very fabric of international cooperation, already fragile in many cases, could be torn apart, making it even more difficult to address global challenges that require collective action.
War, in its most basic form, is a disruption. It disrupts lives, families, and entire societies. But a global conflict in the 21st century, with its intricate web of interconnected economies and financial systems, could lead to a level of economic devastation the likes of which we've never seen. Imagine a breakdown of global trade as nations impose sanctions, embargoes, and blockades on their enemies. Supply chains already strained by recent events would collapse entirely, leading to shortages of essential goods, from food and medicine to fuel and raw materials. The financial markets, already prone to volatility, would likely plunge into chaos, wiping out trillions of dollars in wealth and destabilizing currencies around the world. Businesses would shutter, unemployment would skyrocket, and millions, if not billions, of people would be plunged into poverty. The economic fallout from a global conflict wouldn't be confined to the nations directly involved. It would spread like a virus, infecting every corner of the global economy. Developing countries, already struggling with poverty and inequality, would be hit particularly hard, as aid dries up and the focus of the international community shifts to the conflict. The very foundations of the global economic order, built over decades of cooperation and trade liberalization, could crumble, replaced by a system of protectionism, isolationism, and economic warfare.
War is always a humanitarian catastrophe. But a global conflict in the 21st century, with its densely populated urban centers and advanced weaponry, has the potential to displace millions, if not billions, of people. Imagine cities reduced to rubble, forcing their inhabitants to flee for their lives. Refugee camps, already over capacity in many parts of the world, would be overwhelmed, leading to a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. Food shortages, exacerbated by disruptions to agriculture and supply chains, could lead to widespread famine. Access to clean water and sanitation would be compromised, leading to outbreaks of disease. The international aid system, already struggling to cope with existing crises, would be stretched to its breaking point. The sheer scale of human suffering would be difficult to comprehend, and beyond the immediate physical needs, there's the psychological toll of war. The trauma of violence, displacement, and loss would have a lasting impact on individuals, families, and entire societies. The world would be left grappling with a generation scarred by conflict, struggling to rebuild their lives and communities in the aftermath of unimaginable destruction.
Warfare leaves scars, not just on the human psyche, but on the planet itself. And in an era of increasing environmental awareness, we must confront the sobering reality that a global conflict would have devastating consequences for the natural world. Imagine the immediate impact of conventional warfare forests set ablaze by artillery strikes, ecosystems poisoned by chemical weapons, and landscapes scarred by trenches and bomb craters. The deliberate destruction of infrastructure, like dams and power plants, could unleash toxic pollutants into rivers and oceans, decimating aquatic life and contaminating drinking water sources. And then there's the long-term environmental impact. The massive release of greenhouse gases from burning cities, industrial facilities, and military vehicles would accelerate climate change, leading to more extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and widespread ecological disruption. The use of nuclear weapons, even on a limited scale, would have catastrophic and long-lasting consequences for the environment. Radioactive fallout could contaminate vast areas of land and water, rendering them uninhabitable for generations. The delicate balance of ecosystems would be thrown into disarray, potentially leading to the extinction of countless species. The world we leave behind for future generations would be a pale shadow of the one we inherited.
As if the threats on Earth weren't enough, we must also consider the increasing militarization of space. What was once the domain of scientific exploration and peaceful cooperation is becoming another potential battleground in a future global conflict. Imagine satellites, crucial for communication, navigation and intelligence gathering, being targeted and destroyed, disrupting global communications, financial transactions and even military operations. Space debris created by the destruction of satellites and other space-based assets could cascade into a chain reaction of collisions, creating a cloud of high-velocity shrapnel that could threaten future space exploration and even pose a risk to assets in low Earth orbit. The weaponization of space, once the stuff of science fiction, is becoming a disturbing reality. Anti-satellite weapons, laser systems and other technologies are being developed and tested by various nations, raising the stakes of a future conflict. A war in space wouldn't be confined to the vacuum above our heads. The destruction of satellites could have catastrophic consequences on Earth, disrupting critical infrastructure, crippling economies, and potentially even leading to the loss of human life. As we venture further into the cosmos, we must be mindful of the potential consequences of our actions and work to ensure that space remains a realm of peaceful exploration and scientific discovery, not a new frontier for warfare and destruction. As we conclude our exploration of these hypothetical scenarios, it's important to remember that the future is not predetermined. The choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. While the consequences of a global conflict in the modern world would likely be devastating, it's crucial to remember that we have the power to choose a different path. International diplomacy, conflict resolution, and a commitment to peace are not merely idealistic notions, they are essential for our survival. Let's work together to build a future where dialogue replaces violence, where cooperation trumps competition, and where the pursuit of peace becomes our collective mission. The future of humanity may very well depend on it. Thank you for joining me on this sobering but essential journey. While these scenarios are speculative, the consequences of a global conflict in the modern world would likely be devastating. This is why international diplomacy and conflict resolution are critical to preventing such a catastrophe. Thank you for watching, and let's work together for a peaceful future.